In the news this past week, we learned about sentencing submissions for Dale Stonechild. He is convicted of manslaughter in the death of 84-year-old Victor McNab. The Crown called for life in prison, but the defense asked for something different. It's seeking a non-jail restorative justice sentence, including more spiritual ceremony and counseling, including a sundance ritual. Our two guests this morning are Elder Rick Favel and Elder's helper Philip Brass. They're here to shed more light on the ceremony and on restorative justice and how all of this works. They're in our Regina studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, Philip, I know this started with you, and you had some concerns broadly about how this story was being covered. What were some of your concerns?
Well, I think just in the general public, the unfamiliarity with our traditional justice institutes here, as Cree and Saulteaux people here in Treaty 4 territory, that there was just a danger of there being limited little bits of information put out there for the general public to I think just sends a very dangerous message, so like not just in relation to the Stonechild case. I mean, that's not necessarily what I'm wanting to focus on, but
you just feeling that there wasn't enough context for all of it? I know there was a lot of focus on the piercing part of the ceremony.
Well, I think with the history in Canada with what was called the potlatch laws, I mean, our traditional practices, our sundances were outlawed from 1880 to 1951. That was 71 years. I mean, this is a reason why we protect our traditional institutes very, very carefully, because they were threatened in that way.
And that meant, to a certain extent, it was hidden. Rick?
Yes.
Tell me about the hidden part of it, about that time.
Well, during that time, it was when it was outlawed. A lot of our spiritual leaders did it in secrecy. And at that time we were governed by an Indian agent and a farmer instructor, and they were very they ruled our people, a lot. And when you study our spiritual institutes, ceremonies, you begin to realize that anger and violence is not part of our human holistic being. That we're as First Nations people, as Indian people, we know that there's a creator, and the creator created creation, and everything has a spirit.
So can you tell me about this ceremony that came up in regards to sentencing here? Tell me about this ceremony and how it might be the right thing in this case.
I don't know if it'll be the right case in this case, because a lot of in our way we don't force these on individuals. It's up to the individuals to want to participate.
And then how does it work? If you do have a willing participant, how does it work, and how does it fit within the broader theme of restorative justice?
To have it work for individuals, the person has to really want that change in their life, and believe in the Creator, and love creation and love themselves. In order to be able to help themselves
to heal. So
yes.
What happens during the ceremony? What actually takes place?
Well, we also acknowledge we're in new territory here. I mean, we've kept our ceremonies, what we'd call the raindance lodge in English, going throughout time, but it hasn't been paired with restorative justice programs with the Canadian justice system. So that's a new pairing. Neither Rick or I are experts in that. So seeing how that might play out it's unfamiliar. This is a court-ordered thing, so that's different. But in our lodges, it's not always just only used for restorative justice purposes. I mean, both Rick and I have undergone that ceremony throughout our lives many times.
Can you talk about what it looks like? What actually happens?
Well, it's fasting. 4 days of fasting is the common thing, whether we do that alone or within our lodge, and then it culminates at the end of what we'd call flesh offerings.
That's the piercing part.
The piercing, right, and. Like I've heard Rick explain it, I mean, that's the greatest sacrifice you can give of yourself in prayer and in gratitude of life.
When we do this this lodge, you have people that are participating in there, and also we start before sunrise and we dance all day. And we dance past sunset, and usually a lot of it is the blowing of the whistle in time with our music, and when you get into that state of mind, of fasting and doing this dance, and this one and focusing on positive thought, positive prayer, there's a change that happens. See what we use is a tree. And that tree is made by Creator. It's what we breathe out, that tree breathes in. What that tree breathes out, we breathe in. So there's this interaction. In our language, we call it wakutuin. Wakutuin. And there's a connection with creation during that time. And when we go in there with positive thought and positive prayer, a prayer is like a thought sent out into the universe. And that prayer will come back when it ricochets off some part of creation and comes back. It's like throwing a rock into a small, calm water, and it causes that ripple effect.
Yeah.
That's how the healing, that positive thought creates the healing in each individual when they go and they focus on that center pole, that focal point. We believe in collective thought, collective prayer, to make things happen. So when there's healing that needs to be done in this structure, it creates this energy of a collective.
It's so different from the traditional justice system where you go to court, you commit a serious crime, you go to jail. So how do you respond to people who would say that sounds like a wonderful spiritual experience, but it also sounds like getting off easy if you've committed a serious crime?
I respond to that by saying, we use even their language, as you just said, the traditional justice system. This is the traditional justice system of this place, of Treaty 4 territory. It's ancient. You're referring to the colonial punitive system that does focus on punishment. These ways, in our Big Lodge, that's a gift given to us by the Creator, by the spiritual beings that animate this place. And that lodge belongs to this place. And we as Soto and Nehio people, we recognize that as our ancestors entered this area, that lodge belongs to the plains. And we adhere to its rules. But it's more than it belonging to human beings. It belongs to this place. So we recognize that it is deeply wise in its in how it works in creating healing. It's very holistic.
Can these two coexist? What you call the colonial justice system and your traditional justice system, can they coexist?
Well, they do coexist.
But can they coexist in a case such as the one we're talking about, where you have a very serious crime and you're talking about no jail time?
Yeah, I mean, in the modern age that we live in, we have a lot of scenarios that might not have existed a long time ago. But I mean, prior to contact, I mean, we would have had situations where there would have been murder and there would have been reparations made through that process. And it would be ongoing for many years. And I think it often focused on bringing healing back to the entire community, where sometimes maybe the perpetrator would be adopted, in fact, by the victim's family eventually after undergoing such a process. The end result being holistic healing for the entire community so that they could go forward.
Wow. Well, thank you both so much for coming in. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.